Pittsburgh Steeler fans, what's goody? And welcome to another Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. I am the podcast producer from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And welcome, you have stumbled on to the Sunday morning show of the BTSC family of podcasts. I'm so glad to have all of my friends along here with me. Right now, there's 0 in the live chat, but you will be streaming in soon. And I can't wait to have you along with me as we go back in time, or maybe a year back, and we talk about some Tales from 2 a.m. Now, what are Tales from 2 a.m., you may ask, if you are not familiar with the concept of that. My name is Bryan Davis, like I said, but you could also call me Bad, or you could call me Mr. 2 a.m. And why am I Mr. 2 a.m.? Well, it all stems back to my comparing the Pittsburgh Steelers to a 2 a.m. booty call back in the day. So, even when they're playing awful, and I did that. I did that right before the Cleveland game. And when the Steelers were not playing well last year, I earned that nickname because I said, sometimes you just have to have a slump buster in there. You just have to meet up with the ugly person at the bar and go home and do what comes naturally. So that's how I became Mr. 2 a.m. However, I'm not endorsing debauchery. This is not a show of debauchery. This is just a show of Steeler tales and tales of fandom. And I like to share it all with you. As I look in the live chat, I see friends like Tab and Ryan O'Toole and Kathy Ford, all in the show, all in the live chat. Glad to have you here. And where we have one thing that's great about Steeler Nation is actually BTSC Nation is we're from all over. I was looking the other day, as I am the podcast producer, seeing where our downloads are coming from. And of course, most of them are coming from the United States, but we have them come from Canada, probably thanks to the great Michael Beck, but also we have them coming from Australia, Germany, Sweden, the Bahamas. I mean, all over. We have them from all over. And speaking of Australia, Mark Davison says, "Good day, mates." Is that accent getting better? Good day, mates. I think that's getting better. Another shrimp on the bobby. My daughter goes crazy when I do my accent. And my wife said to me the other day, "Bryan, you just need to stop doing accents." I'm like, well, no. Now that I find out that we're in Germany, I've got to work on a German accent. She's like, yeah, don't do that. But I want to do a Bahama accent and everything on the show. But anyways, so it's so great to have everybody in our live chat and hanging out with us, because when it all comes down to it, we are a BTSC family. And Ryan O'Toole, even though, the great thing about being family is we can be honest with each other. And Ryan O'Toole tells me it is not getting better. LOL. I understand that. My accents are not good. And I used to be an actor. Just not a good actor, but an actor. Anyways, Ezra's in the show too. Ezra in the live chat. So great to welcome everybody in. So if you noticed the title today, it's Welcome to My Living Room. Just don't pee on my couch. Are you wondering what that means? Do you have any clue what that means? Well, we'll be talking about that in just a little bit, because it's something very important to me as well. It's all about fan etiquette as a host and as a guest. And we'll be talking about that. But if you haven't had a chance to check out all of the BTSC family of shows and podcasts on any streaming platform, you've got to do that. Like I always say, you don't want to be looking at this face while you're driving in the car. So it's not just for YouTube only. What it is, it's anytime that you want to listen to a 30-minute show or the entire YouTube show, bumped down to 30 minutes in 2 parts. It's a chance to have something to do on your commute. And we know Kathy Ford, she sometimes has over 2 hours in the car commuting to work. And she likes to listen to our shows, our podcast. Guys, there's a chance every single day to have about 3 to 4 new offerings in the podcast platform. Now the training camp's in session and the padded practices are going on. Jeff Hartman, every night that there's a padded practice, you're going to find it in the evening. What's it going to be? It's going to be a recap. Because remember, Right now, it's hard to find information because we don't have the slew of fans, the slew of media at St. Vincent College. Everybody's at Heinz Field, and there's hardly any reporters there letting us know what's going on. So if something happens, we're getting it straight from the source, the Steelers, and it's kind of watered down. So Jeff gives you all of the ins and outs of what's going on in training camp on these training camp updates every single evening. It's a chance to check out. We have our AM family of shows. We have Let's Ride with Jeff Hartman. You have the Steeler Retro Show on Tuesdays and the Stat Geek on Thursday mornings. And all those YouTube shows that you know and hopefully love, well, they are on the podcast platform as well. And every once in a while, we are going to surprise you like we did the other day with Ike Taylor, which I got to tell you, that was a phenomenal interview. And it had nothing to do with Dave and I conducting it because we just tried to ask unique questions. And all Ike did was run with it. And run he did. It was absolutely amazing. His insight on the 2020 Steelers is impeccable. It's fantastic. And it's always great to hear him talk about the good old days. And, you know, it's really weird to say that the good old days were 12 years ago in 2008 and 2005. And back in, it's hard to think that that was just that long ago. So, you know, it was great to listen to him and compare and try to compare the 2005 Steelers to the 2020 Steelers and the secondaries and so on and so forth. Asiatic Nobles in the house. Good to see him. Bry 160701. John Reynolds. I swear Bry and I have been separated at birth sometimes. I don't know if we're around the same age. All I know is we have the same memory as far as Steeler nostalgia, and he'll bring up some players out of the blue. Like I have one for you, Bry. John Fiala. You haven't thrown one of those at me yet, but remember John Fiala? How about that? So here we go. Let's talk about fan etiquette. Now, I know most of you have had an opportunity to go to a Steelers game. I don't know if it's only been in Pittsburgh or if you've had a chance to go to different stadiums. I've had an opportunity to go to maybe about 9 or 10 different stadiums. Not as many as I want. My goal is to get to every 31 home games. Actually 31 away games, let's call it that. And I want to be at the home stadium. Now, what I'm going to say is if it's the Jets, I've been to the old Meadowlands watching the Jets. And I consider that, even though I haven't seen it at MetLife Stadium, I consider it to be, mark them off the list because I want to go to a Jets home game and a Giants home game. And I want to go to a Chiefs home game. And there are different levels of fandom. So let me start this out like this. I want to quote not my good friend because I've never met him, but one of my favorites, Jerry Seinfeld, saying that, look, as sports fans, we're rooting for laundry. I get that. I understand that. But we're rooting for more than laundry. We're rooting for, how should I say this? I don't want to call it a religion, but we're rooting for more of a concept and a culture. The Steelers have a greater culture, in my opinion, than Cincinnati Bengal fans. But if you ask a Cincinnati Bengal fan, they love their culture. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with thinking of sports as a religion, as long as you're not a fanatic. Because remember, fan is short for fanatic. As long as you're not blowing things up and being absolutely, being treacherous and, really going against that code of conduct. And that's really the main thing. Now, I do have a common courtesy saying when it comes to this, and that is the title. It's welcome to my living room. Just don't pee on my couch. Now, what does that really mean? Look, if you are a fan of the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens, or even, let's just say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you travel to Heinz Field to watch a game. Why are you traveling there? You are traveling there not to cause trouble. You are there because of your love of a sports team. I know how much I love my sports team. If you are making that trip from wherever you are, whether it's Seattle, you're coming from Seattle to come to Pittsburgh, or if you're just coming from Washington, D.C. or Philly, you're coming because you love your team, and in most cases, they're close to you. I went to a Jacksonville game in 2014, and it was 75% Steeler fans. And there is something, everybody talks about Steeler fans traveling well. The Pittsburgh Steeler fans are the best traveling team as far as fan bases go. No, they are not the best traveling team. A lot of Pittsburgh fans relocate, and most of the people in the live chat are relocated. We don't get many people in the live chat from Pittsburgh. We get them from all over. And so that's what happens when you're living in Florida. Like Dave Shipley's in the house. Dave lives in Florida. He goes to, when the Steelers show up down there, he goes to those games. And what happens when you're going to those games, that's because they're maybe 2 hours away from you instead of 14. You know what I'm saying there? So it's the fact that they're coming to your town and they're close enough for you to go see them. That's what makes the fans not the best traveling team, but they follow their team. And when they're in the town that you relocated in and they're in your town, you're going to go see them. When the Rolling Stones come to Pittsburgh, it might be 2 hours away, but that's still your hometown if you're close. I grew up in Johnstown. When any concert came to Pittsburgh, when Van Halen came to Pittsburgh, I was like, I'm there. And it was right next door because it's Pittsburgh. That's exactly what you're looking at. So anyways, fans are people. And we know that. I mean, come on. I shouldn't have to say that. But when you wake up in the morning, and this could go for any of the societal problems that we have right now, any of that, and I'm not getting, I don't get political, but all I'm saying is any opportunity that you get to recognize that the next person sitting next to you, whether they're wearing a black and gold jersey or whether they're wearing black and purple, red, white, and blue, or a really hideous black and orange, when you realize the fact that they wake up in the morning fearing something happens to their family, worrying about their health, saying, man, I don't want to go to work this morning. When you think about that, they're thinking about the same things that you do. They're hoping that your team loses, just like they're hoping their team wins. And that's the same thing that you're doing. That's it. I'm looking at John Reynolds saying, been to M&T Bank 4 times. Had awesome experience every time. I've been to M&T Bank. I'm going to talk about it. Had somewhat of a good experience. Didn't love it at the end, walking out of the stadium. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. In fact, we'll talk about all those things. And let's just take a break. And right after this, and we'll come back. All right, we are back. Tales from 2 a.m. My name's Bryan Anthony Davis. You'd call me bad. You could call me Mr. 2 a.m. Just call me your Steeler fan friend, and just don't call me a Bengals fan, and we'll all be happy. But so what I'm talking about here, we're talking about fan etiquette and whether you welcome a fan into Heinz Field or if you're going to another stadium and how to act. And it's simple. It's a common courtesy thing. Because if you're a people person like me, I am a people person. And I don't care what color jersey that you're rooting for. I consider you just like me. You have the same concerns about your team. You have the same concerns about life. They might be, slightly different, but you don't want to die. You love your family. You don't want to go to work every morning. You're like, ugh. But there's things that happen. And, there's things that happen that make us different. But when it comes to following a team, we're all following for the same reasons. Like Jerry Seinfeld said, we're rooting for different laundry. I root for teams that wear black and gold. And unfortunately, I root for the Pirates too. So I have no chance when it comes to baseball. And this year, my hockey season was 6 days long, really. The new hockey season, I was like, hey, hockey's back. Okay, hockey's over. And that's the thing. Teams have that. We have been blessed to be Pittsburgh Steelers fans. We have been absolutely blessed the last 50 years to have a great team and a great culture to follow. Not every team has that. Every team wants that, but not every team has that. That's the thing. I remember a time when the Patriots were up and down every year. They weren't the dynasty that they were in the last 20 years. They were just mediocre some years, maybe on the fringe one year, but not just quite cutting the mustard. And then it all changed. But, what we're looking at here is we're looking at the fact that, once again, we're all people. And if we treat people like we want to be treated, come on, that's the golden rule. I know that's easy for me to just spout out. We're all going to get along. And what it means to say, welcome to my living room, just don't pee on my couch. What that means to me is if you're going to go into someone else's stadium, don't be a butthole. That's it. Don't be a jerk. Respect them. But understand that you're going to deal with some jerks along the way, but you want to go ahead and be polite. This is easier said than done. As a Steeler fan walking into another stadium, I have heard that. I was in San Diego in 2005, and it was a Monday night game, and as Ryan O'Toole says, don't be a wang. I love it. So the fans were jeering me, and I'd wave and I'd be like, hey, it's going to be a great game tonight. And I'd be saying stuff like that. So I was with my buddy who lives out there, and he was wearing a jersey. In fact, he was wearing a Tommy Maddox jersey that I gave him. And one guy was like, get out of here. And I walk over to him, and my friend's like, what are you doing? And he was at his tailgate. And I said, hey, buddy, I think it's going to be a great game tonight. Good luck. I really like what the Chargers are doing this year. And I went to shake his hand, and he looked at me like, what are you doing? And my buddy's like, you're going to get killed. And then the guy shook my hand, and he was like, oh, all right, you're okay. Because maybe he's not used to fans of other teams being cordial. Remember, it's the old AFC West. And I've got a story about the AFC West. My cousin married a guy named Larry. They were living in California. And we were talking about this at the time. The Raiders were still in Los Angeles, and we were sitting there one time over Christmas. They were coming to visit, and he said, yeah, see this scar right here? This is Broncos 1987. This is Seattle game 1988. And I'm like, wow, you got in that many fights at stadiums? He's like, yeah, I mean, it would happen all the time at Raiders games. And I was like, wow, that's just not what I do. And, but of course it's a different time. Hopefully that's happening less now, but I mean, like, he has scars from different games that he could actually tell you which one they were. I go to a game for entertainment's sake. I don't go to a game to have my life being put in peril. And I remember 1990, the Steelers traveled to Los Angeles, and an older guy was wearing a Steelers jersey. I don't know what happened. He was there with his wife. He got beat up and died. We've heard of those stories. We've heard of those in baseball with the Giants and Dodgers in 2011. We've heard of those a whole bunch of places. We see the fights when they're there. Why are we fighting over sports teams? It's okay to have a difference of opinion. Hey, it's okay for you to be Jewish, me to be Catholic, you to be Methodist, you to be Protestant, you to be whatever, or you to not believe, as long as you are being cordial to that other person and understanding that they're just people all the same wearing those jerseys. or wearing those religious emblems or what have you. You know, it's all a great cornucopia of people, and that's what sports fans should really be. I was talking about rough stadiums to walk into. I was surprised to hear this, and I got this email when I was talking about how Kansas City was going to the Super Bowl, and I was shocked because this one guy said, "Hey, Brian, he emailed me." I said, "Brian, I have bad experiences about going to Chiefs games back in the day. I mean, they stole food from my girlfriend, and there's all this sea of red. And I mean, I've been hit from wearing Steeler clothing. Those fans are really rough, so I can't root for them." Kathy turns around and says, "Had a great time at Arrowhead every time in my Steelers jersey." It just depends who you're looking at. What situation you're in. Sometimes you're in worse situations. 4TL says, "Hey, Bad, you know anyone who was at Three Rivers when a fan fell and died?" You know what? I don't know if that was if that's the Steeler game that you're talking about, or if you're talking about the Pirate game in 1990. I did not know the person, but I knew I was friends. I became friends maybe a year later with the boyfriend who was there when that happened to a girl in the concourse. But I don't know if that's what I know it was really rough on my buddy Jay there. But if that's the story you're talking about, yeah, that's the only one I do know of for TL. Snowman says, "Just don't wear enemy gear into other people's stadiums." Yes and no. There's stadiums that I have no problem. Like I said, it was San Diego. I had no problem wearing that. I had no problem wearing it in Jacksonville. In fact, when we were in Jacksonville, it was 75% Steeler fans, and the 25% were really being obnoxious, yelling, chanting "She Said No" in the concourse, referring to Ben Roethlisberger and those allegations from 10 years back, which I thought was really obnoxious. Because of the situation and the knowledge of what all the transcripts of everything that happened there. But they were just running with it. And I'm sure you're going to get that kind of thing in Baltimore. And I didn't experience that when I was in Baltimore, but we do the same thing to anybody in Baltimore. When Baltimore comes up that mentions Ray Lewis, we immediately have a thing to say about Ray Lewis as well. So, there's so many situations, fan situations where it could get ugly. Because fans are prideful of their team. Gosh, we don't have it anywhere as bad as they do in England, man. With the soccer hooligans, man, I would never go there. But as far as wearing, I'll wear a Steeler jersey into Baltimore, no problem. If I ever go to a Raiders game or an Eagles game, probably not going to wear one because I feel that those situations could be a whole lot rougher. I'm probably just going to wear a black shirt, just for safety, especially if I'm going to take children with me. Noble says, "Currently live in Baltimore myself. I live probably an hour outside of Baltimore. I've been to games there, and so I got tickets from my good friend that has season tickets, my good friend Scott, and I got him. Gosh, this was maybe 2015. I know Star Wars came out. It came back for the first time. It was at 13. That's when The Force Awakens. So we went to see The Force Awakens, and the next day we were getting ready to go. It was right after Christmas, and we were going to go to the Steeler game. Steelers were going to the playoffs. The Ravens were not. The Ravens, in fact, so I think it was 15. The Ravens were really bad. actually really bad. They were like 5-13 that year. I mean, 5-11 that year. Unfortunately, the 5th win came at the expense of the Steelers, and they were loving it. And there's part of me that's saying, that's pretty awesome. They're getting a win here. Steelers are in the playoffs. But walking home, there were some drunk Baltimore fans, and there was a family in front of me. The guy I was with was giant. He was Dave Schofield giant. In fact, he reminds me of Dave. He's probably about 6'4", 6'5", and a big dude. I'm talking Harry Potter Hagrid type big. And so we're walking down the stadium. I'm wearing my jersey. No one's saying anything to me anyways. A couple people said stuff to me in the stadium. There was one guy that was really obnoxious, wearing a CJ Mosley jersey. And I could understand why fights happen because I did want to pop him, but I'm just not that way. He was not very cordial to black and gold coming into a stadium, and he let them hear it, but he never said it to me. But he was one of those guys that waited till your back was turning, you're walking down the steps, and then yell at you. Because, simple coward. You know what I'm saying there. But so really, what I'm trying to say here is these fans, they were pretty drunk, and they were yelling at a family with kids under 10 wearing Steeler jerseys and taunting them. And then my buddy just looked back at him, just stopped and looked at him. And I stopped, and it's like Timon and Pumbaa. Pumbaa looks at you, you're like, all right, I'm not messing with him. I'm like Timon. No, I mean, I wasn't being that Weasley guy, but I was saying, we both stared them down and they stopped. But, it's one of those things that you've got to be careful. There's always that jerk. It's that bad apple that spoils the bunch. We're going to talk a lot more about this in the second half of Tales from 2 a.m. right after this. If you're on YouTube, stick around. If you're not, if you've enjoyed part 1, even if you haven't, I need the downloads. So go ahead and come back for part 2, and we're going to do that right after this. And we are back. Welcome back to Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. It is great to have you all with us. Lots of people in the live chat. When this is recorded on a Sunday morning, so I appreciate you talking to me before you go to church online or whatever you do, however you celebrate your faith. And we're talking about celebrating football faith right now and how it's okay to celebrate other teams. I'm going to bring this up. My good friend, what's goody, Big Marv. My wife is a Cowboys fan. She wants to go to a home game in Texas. Okay, said we can go. Then she turned around and told me that you can't wear your Steelers jersey. I said, wow. That's the cool thing about Steelers travel pretty well. Like I said, they don't travel well, but they show up in other team stadiums because they're there. I think you might be okay, Big Marv, but it's really cool that you could celebrate the fact that your wife loves the Cowboys and you can be a Steeler fan. I could be married to a Ravens fan. I would have no problem as long as it's a respect thing for what the other team enjoys. So, that's what I think there. But it's all about being cool in another stadium if you're going in there. So I was telling you that I walked into M&T Bank Stadium, and my buddy Scott gave me tickets. We were pretty high up there, and I sat down next to this woman wearing Baltimore camouflage, the old camos and a big purple jersey. And I sat down next to her. I have a terrible towel. I'm wearing it. I'm Steelers head to toe. And she looks at me, turns to me like this, and she's like, mm-hmm. And I said, hi, I'm Bryan. She said, yeah. I said, hey, look, I'm going to make a promise to you. By halftime, I'm going to be your favorite Steeler fan that you've ever met. And she looked at me and she goes, really? And I'm like, yeah. I said, really? I said, because we're all here for the same reason we love our team. She's like, all right. Halfway through the second quarter, she looked at me and said, all right, you're right. You are my favorite Steeler fan that I've ever met. Great. I said, thank you. I knew I would be. And I said it cockily. I said, yeah, I know. Because I was going to respect the fact that she's there to enjoy the game, and I'm not going to ruin it for her, who she bought a ticket, and I don't expect her to ruin it for me. Because the only thing that ruined it for me is the Steelers were awful that day. And that's it. I didn't enjoy the walk home, but for the most part, it was not a bad fan experience. I have sat next to Steeler fans in Pittsburgh. And I've sat next to opposing fans in Pittsburgh. And I take the time to seek out the other fans, shake their hand and say, hey, good luck today. Have fun. And they're shocked when I say that because they have a hard time by some people jeering them. Walking into the stadium in 2008 with my nephew, Johnny. Now, Johnny's a Giants fan. And I said, hey, I'll take you to the Giants game. And that was the infamous James Harrison having a play for Greg Warren at a long snapper game. And that turned out ugly. But so we're walking in the stadium, and this is a guy that my nephew Johnny, I was actually now when I say nephew, my wife and Johnny are probably a year apart in age. So, he's an adult going in, big guy, goatee. He's, truck driver, not afraid to, just a big, tough guy. And if anybody messes with him, he's going to fight. And I'm like, oh man, Johnny's not going to fight. She goes, nah, Johnny's not going to fight. He's going to be fine. So we're walking in, and there's these fans tailgating in the parking lots closer to PNC Park. And I knew it right away that this guy was going to be a problem because he's wearing a Steeler jersey. And it's not a homemade Steeler, it's a custom Steeler jersey. Now, you could kind of tell what kind of person and what kind of fan a guy is that has, instead of his last name, unless his last name was Jagoff, but he put Jagoff on the back of his jersey. Of course, a common phrase in Pittsburgh. Put Jagoff on the back of his jersey, and I bet I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to give the live chat an opportunity to guess what number this cretin put on his homemade jersey. First one to get it wins my admiration. But you know where I'm going here. You know the number that this guy that is dumb enough to put Jagoff on the back of his jersey. And if you are Jagoff, congratulations. Yep. Big Marv, you did not get it. It wasn't 84, but everyone else knows that the number 69 was on the back of this guy's jersey, in the front of this guy's jersey. So if you are Jagoff, hey, you yelled at my nephew, and you yelled at me for bringing a Giants fan. And of course, I stopped. I'm not a fighter. You know that. I stopped. And I turned around. I'm like, what did you say? And he called my nephew, who's like a pretty big guy, a Giants. It was the homosexual slur that starts with an F and ends with a T. He called him that. And I took more exception than Johnny did. And I turned around and I'm like, what? And Johnny's like, yeah, come on, let's keep going. And I'm like, yeah, nice shirt, buddy. Good advertising. I remember just yelling that to this guy. And he was drinking his cheap beer and yelling at me. And it's like, come on, show some class. So you're always going to have the Jagoff 69s in the bunch. They're always going to be there. But we as Steeler fans, we can help overcome that. My favorite story. This is my absolute favorite story. And it kind of stinks because it was just a bad situation as a Steeler fan. 2004 season, Ben Roethlisberger, rookie year, 15-1. Awesome. get to the AFC Championship game, get to the AFC divisional game. They weren't good. They snuck through that game. But you get to the AFC Championship game. You're playing the Patriots. You're all excited. This could be the year. You've got this rookie phenom. It falls apart. It did fall apart. And we all know that it fell apart. So with that, my buddy who was drunk, we got a hotel room that night, and he was drunk, and he's like, I'm leaving. I'm gone. And this was like with 5 minutes left. I'm like, well, look, I want to wait a while, because I've been to playoff games where the Steelers lost, and that concourse is not fun. It is horrible because people are yelling, they're screaming, they're cursing the coach. I mean, I've been there when Cower lost AFC Championship games, and they're cussing him, and like, I knew it, and I knew they'd be cussing Tomlin. I just wanted to wait as long as I possibly could. And I found out that Joe Namath was going to be there presenting the trophy to the Patriots on the field. I'm like, I'm going to stick around and watch it. I'm an NFL fan. I just want to see it. So basically, I was waiting for it to clear out, and I'm in section 225. And I decide I'm going to walk down and get closer, because like all the Patriots fans rush down to the lower bowl. And they're there, and they're cheering on their team. And you know what? I had no problem with them doing it. I had a problem with the Steeler fans that tried to get Patriot fans that weren't doing anything wrong kicked out by calling the usher to say that they said something. And a lot of Steeler fans stuck up for them there and said they didn't do anything. Don't touch these guys, because they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just the wrong thing they were doing was wearing a different color jersey. That's it. So I decided to go back right to the edge, go down and see it. And I'm not too far from it anyway. So I'm walking down, and I'm wearing a Joey Porter jersey. And this enthusiastic Patriot fan is running up and knocks right into me. And as soon as he did, he's like, oh my gosh, so sorry. Sorry, I didn't see you. I looked at him, not a smile on my face, put my hand out. I said, hey, have fun at the Super Bowl. Good luck to your team. And the guy looked at me, and obviously he was from up north. He obviously traveled for this in a Boston accent, which I'm not going to try the Boston accent, because you guys are going to make fun of me. Yeah, I am. Hey, you walk me to my car. Okay, that's my car. No, I can't even do that. No, I'm not going to try. So anyways, he said, what are you doing? I said, what? I'm congratulating you. Have fun at the Super Bowl. He said, you've got to be kidding me. Nobody. You're the nicest Steeler fan I've met in this entire stadium, this entire weekend. I said, well, you know what? You root for your team, just the reason I root for mine. Have fun. He said, hey, will you take a picture with me? I'm like, sure. I said, hey, I'm just not going to smile. He goes, that's all right. So I'm posing with this guy, put my arm around him. I'm posing with this guy. We got our picture. He said, hey, thank you so much. And he left. And then I realized that they're handing the trophy to Brady and Belichick. I'm like, yeah, okay, I think it's time for me to slowly walk out of here, because I just don't want to watch this. When the Ravens won the Super Bowl after the 2013 season, after the 12 season in 2013, when the Patriots win, I don't watch. I watch it when it gets down to 5 seconds, and when the confetti starts and they start celebrating, I got to turn it off, because I just don't want to watch it. I'll watch the game. I just don't want to watch the celebration. Even now, when Patriots beat the Ravens in the AFC Championship game a couple times, I had no trouble sticking around to watch that. I had no problem watching the Patriots beat the Ravens. But that's just where I am and what I want to do. But that Steelers story with the Patriots fan, that's really what's important to me. it's really important to me that even though I'm sad that my team lost, still have a wife and kids to go home to. I've got a job. I'm blessed with health. I have my family around me. I've got a lot of things going for me. I'm not going to go home and to quote Joe Paterno, what am I going to do? Go home and kick the dog? You know, so gosh, that's a bad accent too. But what I'm saying is, there's still games that bug me, but at the end of the day, it's a game, and I'm just going to come back next year and root again. Think about this. In 51 glorious seasons, 51 glorious seasons since the merger, they've been really good. Only 6 of those 45 have the Steelers taken home championships, and that's tied for the most. So we're not going to have those wins every year. We want those wins every year, and we're going to. But for me, I am not going to treat another human being in a poor way just because they're wearing a different jersey. I've been to a Jets game. I've been in California. I've been to games in California, and I have a lot of fun with it. But I am not going to be a Wang in their stadium, and I am just going to make sure that I'm looking over them when they're in my stadium. I remember back in 1997. That was a fun year, by the way. 97 was a fun year, and we are going to we're going to actually go back to this game in a few weeks, probably on the Steeler Retro Show. But it was the Jaguars and Steelers right before. Of course, it was the Steelers. Why did I pause for that? So what it was like right before Halloween, and I remember because I missed most of the Jim Leland Marlins beating in Game 7 the Indians. I listened to it on the radio on my way home. But anyways, so this game was I guess was October 28th, 29th, something like that. And Steelers had Cordell and they had Buss and had a really good defense. They had to have a goal line stance in that game. Jerome had a costly fumble that almost cost them the game, and they won in overtime, and it was awesome. But at halftime, the Jaguars were winning, and the Jaguars were winning by a lot at one point, or enough that it was really scary. And there were these 2 shirtless Jaguars fans running around acting like idiots in the restroom. And I remember saying to them, dudes, have fun, but you're gonna get beat up. I said that to them, and they're like, "Woo, Jags!" And I'm like, dudes, and I worried about those guys. I'm like, if the Steelers lose this game, which it looks like they're going to, they didn't, that these guys might be dead in the morning. And I was really scared about that. And I remember saying something to them, and they were just laughing and having fun with it. But it was scary. So this is what I want to do right now. I want to take the next 5 minutes. If you did throw up your fan experiences, I'm not great in the live chat when I'm doing the show because bad's adult ADHD. So throw them out there, and let's throw that in the live chat as well. And while we're doing it, I'm going to bring up 4TL. Bad man, let's celebrate that Brady and Belichick are divorced. So we got to worry about hard young Lamar and Andy and young Mahomes. We do have to worry about those guys, but I love what I'm seeing in training camp, and I think that's pretty exciting. Even though this is kind of a look back, Asiatic Noble, what does everyone think of Curtis Riley? I think Curtis Riley could make that team. As you say later, for a little depth, I think that's actually a really good signing. You just saw a tight end being signed yesterday. They might be looking at bringing some other guys in this week. I actually know of one interview that's coming up. Not a name that we know well, but with an expanded practice squad, you might be looking, and the fact that you can put veterans on that practice squad, you might see a lot more depth on that practice squad as well. So let's throw in some fan stories. I'm going to talk about being welcomed into a living room or welcoming somebody into a living room and not peeing on their couch. So if we have that, that would be awesome. Doesn't look like anything is coming in. Portland does say, don't forget my dogs. Yes. Remember, I had Heinz and Palomalu were my dogs. But now I have Hermione and Luna. So we and Harvey, we had to go the Harry Potter route that time around. Asiatic Noble, a Pat fan had a frozen cold beer thrown at him and it almost hit their baby. Yeah, come on. That's not. Why you gonna hit a baby? I know you didn't mean to hit the baby, but it almost hit the baby. Come on, don't do that. Portna says that Schefter has reported that the Ravens are moving on from Earl Thomas. I'm going to tell you this. I don't want Earl Thomas in Pittsburgh. And people are going to disagree with me. I think Earl Thomas is a phenomenal player. I think he's really good. And here's the problem, though. And the problem is, yep, there it is. My buddies just sent me breaking news. They're moving on from Pro Bowl safety Earl Thomas today. Sources say they will either release him for conduct detrimental to the team, punching. Oh, he punched Chuck Clark. Or they're going to trade him. Dallas is a leading contender if he's released, per sources. I mean, Dallas was in the mix with him just a couple years. 2 years ago before the Ravens signed him. The reason I don't want him is because the whole fight started because, and this is not the first fight that he's had in Baltimore. The fight started because he's a freelancer and he messed up on a play. Chuck Clark said something to him, and then it immediately started into a fight. I don't think he's the best locker room guy. And I also don't think that we've seen it. We've had a guy like Earl Thomas here. His name was Antonio Brown, wanting to do his own thing. And remember, you need 11 players on a side, not one and 10 other guys. So I would much rather I'd much rather have him in the NFC and not in Baltimore, but not in Pittsburgh too. You remember, you can add a guy like that, but it's not going to be, it could be addition. It could be subtraction by addition when you bring a guy like that into. He had a weird offseason too, with orgies and domestic disputes. So, might be best to keep a guy like that out of there. And I just don't see, they could easily sign him like they signed Joe Hayden when Joe Hayden left the Browns, but the Ravens aren't trading him to Pittsburgh. They'll trade Chris Wormley to Pittsburgh. And thank you, because I think that's going to be a great pickup, but they're not going to trade Earl Thomas to Pittsburgh. So there you go. We don't have any other big fan stories here. So we're going to wrap things up. I got to thank all my BTSC family. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It is absolutely a pleasure. Yeah, 4TL. Seriously, go back and check out March or whatever. There's orgies and stuff. There's and the wife wasn't happy when he found out. I think his brother was involved too. It was crazy stuff. Yeah, just Google that. I don't think that I don't think that I'm embellishing that. I believe that's, well, it depends. I'm not talking 20 people. It was probably about 4 or 5, but that's still where I come from. That's a lot. So, but anyways, and Jared Devil backs it up with his brother was involved in that too. But yeah, it did not really go well when Mrs. Thomas found out about that whole thing, which I'm sure Mrs. Bad would be upset if something like that happened. But I'm good in that respect. So with that being said, hey, thank you so much for everybody that hung out with me today. I can't do this show without the Cathys and the Fortiels and the Bries and the Asiatic Nobles and the Jared Devils and the Azaras. And you're just the ones on my screen at this particular moment. So that's why I'm talking about you. But of course, Snowman was in and Dave Shipley was in. And, a lot of our good friends were in today. So I really appreciate all of you. John Reynolds was in Portna, of course. It's great to have you along with me. You mean a lot to me, and I don't want to do these shows without you guys. So thank you so much for being here. Check us out the rest of the week. Let's Ride comes back tomorrow morning with Jeff Hartman. There's going to be, training camp recaps tonight. There are going to be this show's going to premiere on the streaming platform tomorrow morning, and we're gonna have the same fun with all of us. Jeffrey Benedict, with Dave Schofield, with Rich Schofield, Big Bro Sco. We're gonna have Michael Beck in here. You're going to have, of course, me and Jeff Hartman. All 6 of us in the BTSC podcast platform family, and check us out, and please download us too. And not only download us, if you're downloading us on Apple, please give us a 5-star rating if you think we have earned that 5-star rating, and I hope that we have. But for the entire BTSC family of podcast players, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You could call me bad. You could call me 2 a.m. Just call me your Steeler friend, and we're all good. To quote my good friend, Big Marv, what's goody, Steeler fans? We'll see ya.